After the great refusal of humanity wanting any other species anywhere near their home planet of Earth, there was a time where everyone just left humanity alone. They didn't really think of them as a threat. Sure, they were nasty on their own planet, but they weren't even spacefaring yet. When the Zork decided that they would go back and annex Earth along with the rest of her system, this meant that humanity was in for a very rude awakening to how everything is done out with the galactic population. The Zork would simply have to take over space and simply segregate them and then take very easily calculated shots down towards the planet to cripple humanity. Cripple them so much that eventually they would beg to be subjugated. When they tried to enter Sol about a galactic century after the Great Refusal, they found out that the entire system was actually covered in humans and controlled by humans. Yet they figured this would still be an easy mark. They continued on their way, but found out how dangerous humanity can be. Though, again, only spacefaring for about a galactic century, which was only about 2 centuries in human years. They still believed this was going to be an easy victory, especially since all they could catch on sensors, aside from the stations that were scattered around their entire sector, was a few whispers, at best, that came across the sensors. Small blips that seemed to not be there after only a moment. What they didn't see was a certain type of ship. The ship that had become a standardized ship for protecting Sol itself. Many of those aboard were just the sole occupant on board, yet sometimes they worked in groups. These ships, measuring 1.9 kilometers long and 700 meters wide, are shaped very similar to the end of a spear. This design was to maximize the stealth, and so they would not have to have active or passive sensors. Yet this meant many times they would simply drift into an area and no one would even realize it was there. That was until they got ready to fire their main weapon, a spiral-mounted rifled railgun that fired 1,000-ton shells at .6 speed of light. Due to such a massive weapon for such a small or relatively small ship, 60% or more of the internals are dedicated to recoil dampeners, inertial dampeners, and everything else they can to prevent the weapon from sending the ship into a tumble every time it fired its weapon. Due to this, the engines would burst out with power with what is known as a star core fusion reactor, and simply blast a whole bunch of signals across as each of the systems were spiked, just trying to keep the ship level. However, that was not anything anybody worried about, as the projectile was already on its way. And as stated before, many times they are already at what's considered point-blank range, less than a second before impact, and nobody, not even an AI, has that good a reaction. In order to fire this projectile with such precision, because you only get one shot before you have to run and hide afterwards, the pilot would link up to their artificial intelligent virtual assistant. This Ava would allow them to lock in with the firearm as though it is part of their own body, linking in with all the sensor data at the same time, making it so that the weapon was them. They were the weapon, and they knew exactly where that round was going to land and pierce through at such speed and such tonnage. It would be enough to core through a capital ship. In more than one case, a Titan-class vessel was punched clean through, venting more than half of the occupants before they even knew what was going on. Due to this, humanity would simply fire their weapons and take off running, trying to leave as little bit of a signature as possible so they do not catch too much counterfire. However, if they were chased, this was never a good idea. The Zork found out the hard way that they were always being led into a trap, and they would be hit 2, 3, 4, sometimes 12 shots at a time would come in, tearing their pursuing craft to absolute pieces before they even knew what was going on. This whittled down their forces piece by piece. And for this type of operation, you don't bring a lot of ships. maybe 70 or 80 at most. Now, after the first shot, not only is their command ship totally out of commission, but they have to deal with the fact that multiple ships have also been struck, knocking 4, 5, 6 out at a time. Then they would send others off to try and pursue them, and there goes another 2 or 3 ships, many of them patrol craft, but still the numbers dwindle so much, so by the time they actually reached Earth, brought their major weapons to bear, they suddenly realized that a bunch of them came out from the side of the moon that they could not see, circling around the outside as though the moon itself had a ring, and each of them fired at the same time, making it so that there was an exact time on target, shattering almost every single vessel that remained. With that, they watched as one vessel tried to run for it, tried to jump to FTL, but no survivors, and humanity made sure of that. According to the Zork, their entire group was just gone. They had no idea how or why. All they got was just a little bit of data that was sent between each attack. And one word kept coming up. They didn't understand why this word kept arriving. They knew this meant something on the surface, but in the deep void of space, why would it constantly keep saying sniper? Hello everybody, this is Syntax. Thank you so much for joining me on today's story. A story that was actually partially submitted by Ava Clark. Thank you so much for helping out with the story. Before I go, I need to send some additional thank yous to some of my supporters, and those will be Erica Gem, MTF Guard, Sir, Guardian Sage, SS Demon, Chris Dixon, Brian Kemp, and Cause Lynn. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I will see you on the next one. This is Syntax, punching out.